Hey everybody, this is Brenda Devine from Purpose 8 Institute, and you're listening to my podcast, Living a Life of Purpose, where we discuss the importance of purpose in our everyday lives. Discovering and living out your purpose keeps you focused on God's purpose. That is sharing the good news of salvation with others. This podcast is for people like me, still searching for the answers to who am I and why am I here? You and I were designed and created by God for purpose, and we have much to do. You can listen and subscribe to my podcast, Living a Life of Purpose with Brenda Devine on Anchor and all other podcast platforms. Hey, this is Brenda Devine from Purpose 8 Institute. Hey, I just want to say thank you for joining me for another episode of my podcast, Living a Life of Purpose. So, today's topic is realization of God's grace, gratitude. So, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about moments in our lives. We can't remember every day that we've lived, but we remember moments. We remember the good, the bad, the ugly, the distressful, the challenges, the beautiful moments, the dark moments, the sad moments, the happy moments. We have these pictures and images in our heads and in our hearts of moments in our lives. And when we are going through moments of distress, it is easy to be not content, to feel pressed upon and used up and uncomfortable. And that is part of the process of being a believer. That is part of being a servant. That is part of being a child of God. We can have those high moments. They feel good, but we don't really always grow in high moments, do we? We have to have these other moments that give us an opportunity to know ourselves better, to get another perspective or reminder of God's character, to get another understanding of what we're really here for. And often that hurts, and it is a process, and it takes time and patience and long suffering and studying and reading and praying and crying and resetting. And from my own experience, I didn't always know what to do, and I often did the wrong thing instead of doing the right thing. But I eventually realized that I had to move the way God wanted me to move. I had to align my will to His will in order to be who He called me to be, what He called me to be, and what He wants me to do. So I had to accommodate myself within the condition and the situation that I was in. And that's not always easy. And that's when we get to the point where we stop fighting and we start believing and trusting in God and letting His hand move us, shape us, empty us, fill us, His hand moving and not our own. And I've gotten to the point of gratitude that He even wanted to be bothered with me. that he even took the time. Because when we're living this life, we think it's all about us, and it's really not. It's about God's will. It's about his purpose for us. And that's not always easy to accept. And it's painful when it's put in motion. It's one thing to say it. It's another thing to live it out, to walk it out, to pray it out, to think and look at your weaknesses and realize how you are making or possibly making a situation worse than it really is. Or should I say, making a situation worse. So I've come to a point of gratitude, because we get so focused on what's going on and how can we change it and what can we do, what can we say, and we forget that God is in control. This is his world. We're in it. We're his servants. But ultimately, we don't really, it's already written out how it's going to occur. It's already been decided. What's actually important in these moments is our response. How are we responding? How are we giving God the glory? How are we paying attention to our weaknesses and asking God to help us? Asking Christ to teach us? Asking the Holy Spirit to tell us what's going on, to direct us and correct us? What are our responses as we go through those challenging moments of our lives? There's so much to be grateful for. Just the realization, to start to realize the magnitude of God's grace. To get up in the morning, to wake up, to open our eyes, to breathe, to walk, to put on clothes, to have a place to live, to have food, to have a blanket on your bed, to have a bed, to have a floor to put your bed on, to have a way to work, to have money, to have provision, to have people that love you, to have a purpose to work towards, to have a purpose to live out, to have breath in your body, to have health, to have the ability to communicate. We take a lot for granted. We take our lives for granted. We take our health for granted. We take our friends, our family, our marriages, our children. We take everything for granted. We're not really grateful people. We're consumed with me, and being content. Praying that God takes his hand off of us, to stop molding us so that we can get back to being comfortable, telling the Creator what to do, and not being content in his hand and how it's shaping us and molding us for his purpose. That's really hard. It really is. But I've come to find out it is so good at the end when I finally let go and let God, and realized, and I look back on all those moments some of them so hurtful, and some of them so beautiful. But just being grateful that he even took the time. So many times God calls out to us. He's calling us to live out our purpose, to be a servant, to be kind, to be generous, to be encouraging, to be humans, and we refuse. And we refuse over and over again. And then we wonder why we're not happy. We're not happy because we're not living the life that God has called us to. We're living that life that we've created, trying to create our own moments, trying to create our own life, our own pedestals, our own titles, our own pride. But God keeps calling us. And at some point, like me, in 2014, you get to the end and it's like, this is the call and you have to answer. And you live out your purpose in life terms. It's become sweeter. There's these moments that we have, living a life of purpose, that we go along, and there are glorious moments, and there are low moments. The difference is that we know that God's grace, we know that God is in every one of those moments. He was in those other moments, but we just did not consider him, not all the time. But when we're living in a life of purpose, we know that God is in those moments. And we know that there is a bigger purpose in our lives. That even though we are distressed and going through challenges and struggles, we know that all things work together for good for them that love the Lord. And we love the Lord. So we know that things will work out. And so I've settled my mind on being content in whatever and however things flow. I've settled my mind on being grateful and having a heart of gratitude for the grace that God has given me that I definitely don't deserve. I don't. Not any bit of it. I don't deserve it. But he's found a way through his Son, Jesus Christ, to give me that grace, to give me new moments, some painful, some glorious, some amazing, some wonderful. But I still have to realize through every one of those, everyone, that God is there, that he has his hand on me, on the good and the bad. He doesn't have to, but he wants to because he loves me. And I'm happy with that. I really am. So I'm going to challenge you to look back over your own moments in your life. And then I'm going to challenge you to continue to live your life of purpose. And I'm going to challenge you to not stand still, to not be afraid when God brings an opportunity to you, when he brings a challenge to you, to not look at it as, I can't do this, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. But look at it as an opportunity to grow, to be prepared for the next thing, the next promise that God has for you, the next elevation of your faith, the next level of spiritual growth and understanding of who you are and what you are. We have so much to do in this life. So many people who are wanting to hear from God, to see God. And we have an opportunity as we go through our highs and as we go through our lows for them to see God in us. Because when they see God in us, we are sharing the good news of salvation. And we are sharing that we have value, that we are loved, that we are grateful, and that we have purpose. This is Brenda Devine from Purpose 8 Institute. Hey, I'll talk to you in a little bit. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining me on my podcast, Living a Life of Purpose, on Anchor and all other major podcast platforms. To learn more about Purpose 8 Institute and our ministry of sharing the importance of purpose, please visit our website, www.purpose8institute.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and even TikTok. If you would like to learn more about purpose beyond this podcast, Living a Life of Purpose, you can also purchase one of my books that are available on my website, purpose8institute.com, and also on Amazon.